White, the background is no longer white. And we keep doing that. So as the back of the room, that's going to be black by the end of it. But that's based on having like one of my full 3 metre kind of long ones. That works. So I always shoot white for that reason, and I can change my backdrop colour depending on the space I have. Also, power of lights. So these aren't my lights, so I'm not used to them. I'd have it a bit lower, that background's be brighter, those highlights on Karen's face won't be there so much, things like that. But I just want to keep it the same settings throughout. So once I've got my settings, I can move the actual whole studio away from the background. That background becomes darker and darker. And I'm always aiming for a mid-tone grey. And the reason is, when it gets to that stage where I'm adding that fake texture, I have an easier process ahead of me. And the reason I don't use an actual texture backdrop is because I want full control over what's actually going on that texture. So we're kind of into this, like, its position gives it a nice kind of shadow on the side and thing. And again, ideally we bring our reflector back in and fix up here, but just showing how the umbrella works. It's kind of similar to our kind of beauty dish, but just a wider one. We don't have like the kind of nice gradient here or anything like that. It's quite a flat look. The last video was just total shambles. And I was like, it's okay, I'm doing better than all the kit, and this is actually far worse.
They got line sense there, they've got everything you mentioned. That's probably just
Shambles.
I didn't think we knew that.
See, as soon as you got the chair, as soon as you got the chair, I was like, I very rarely. Third light will be a soft box, but probably nicer when this lost property reject. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's impressive.
Oh, that is nice. Whoever put this on really put it on. Whereas I've taken the diffuser off that one. It's never going back on ever. The metal ones, like the solid ones which I have, actually as I was saying, I don't use these, I'm going to use it now because this is actually going to make a softer light by putting it all the way back. Because what I'm actually doing is I'm putting the light further into the modifier. So what it's doing is it's kind of bouncing inside then going out. Whereas it's at the back, it's just going out. The best way to imagine is imagine broken one here. Well, this doesn't even come off. Oh, weird. Do not like this. Anyway, this doesn't come off. Pro photo. What's this for? 80 quid? 100 quid? Anyway. Imagine this is a bucket of water. Full of water. If I was to do that, who would come out?
Because there's lid on it.
Lose camera on such a insignificant rubbish rig. Back to here, camera detected. No camera detected. Good. Oh, there we are. Right. Move this back to here. And I have a flag here, so that there's no spill on that back. But
Sorry, what do you mean by flag?
okay, a flag is the opposite of a reflector.
Does one use a card to demonstrate maybe?
They're white, they'll do the
Just
opposite.
to show where you put it.
Oh yeah, of course. Hand those over. these actual pictures are, yeah, they are. I wondered if they were like just like actually reflector boards, but they are like graphics.
That almost could be a flag.
It's a flag.
Oh yeah, I use this as a flag. It's possible going to bounce
Yeah.
red onto people. Contact and reflective light is actually a lot more visible than you'd think. It's really strange. But going back to visual effects again, it's strange how these are things you just don't think of until you have to do visual effects. Although if you are working in Photoshop and doing composites, it's something to really think of. If you're putting someone in an environment they don't belong in, or weren't shot in, should I say, contact reflections are a thing. The bottom of your shorts are actually red. They're not the colour of your shorts because the red seat is reflecting red light onto your shorts. If I cut you out and put you on a green chair, it would look odd because there's a little bit of red that I can't really see with the naked eye, but there's red there and it does exist. There's no way actually, you could actually do a smaller thing than this. Pretty much, Newer have pretty much these for like £250 each. I have a few of them and I totally recommend them. I would definitely say go for them. But the reason I don't use them is because when it comes to like triggering, which is one, but yeah, someone has it. You know, a little trigger for the light? Oh, it's over there. Okay, excellent. That will only speak to the brand it's for. So if I have like a bunch of Neo lights and a bunch of Bowens lights, I can only control however many of that brand. So my newer lights are now just my spares. But I originally bought them as little kind of high-speed sync lights, and I was so happy with the results. I then bought more Bowens to meet my other Bowens so that I could trigger them all together and really do some kind of creative stuff with it. Everything's sharp. If I change my aperture to make it brighter, it'd become overexposed, which we did. So I made my aperture 1.4, I think, or 2.8, 1.4, and that's what happens. And those settings are as dark as I could possibly get my settings at that aperture. So this is 1.4, 200 seconds, ISO 100. I couldn't make that any darker, apart from maybe putting like an ND filter over the lens. But the problem with that is, it's difficult to focus if you're putting a pair of sunglasses in front of your lens, to be honest. So if you want to focus and get that, so what we did is we set it to high speed sync. So this is 4,000 of a second, 1.4 ISO 100, and the difference is, if you zoom in, you can see totally in the focused eye, but by the time it gets here, it's gone. You couldn't, that's not possible in a normal studio set without high speed sync. Well, it is possible with an ND filter, but then you have to set focus, put the filter on, take your photo, take it off. Like, by putting a filter on your I'll delete a folder. Of here. So, and I was gonna, yep, cool. And so, how's the show going? Yep. So, looks like that's really good. Excellent. So, well, that's how they break. So, yeah, it's, you're not, these aren't things that take time. Metering would take time. Oh, one second, going to meet you here. F7, excellent. Oh, perfect shot. Like, that takes time, but just talking away as you're doing stuff. But it's like, but this is one of these kind of things, it is a just no situation where it is like, if you've done enough shoots to know why it's too bright, you can just go and fix it as you're going along. I think sticking to the dogma of film in a digital age is slower, in a sense. So I'm not saying, I'm definitely not anti metering. That is not the case at all. I'm definitely not anti metering. But I think there are more efficient ways when you have very limited time with a client to get your job done without feeling like you're some kind of amateur or phony or philistine for not following the dogma. I used to use like the import section here and like find like random imports, but sometimes I'd be importing like multiple products in the same day. And if they're all dated, you can go like a day and find 6 shoots in there and know which way you're going for. So in that import stage, by clicking that Add to Collection button, I instantly create a designated folder just for the shots of that particular project I want to work on. So it's, in terms of workflow, this is a very good way of keeping, if you're busy and working on different projects, this way I can go to my collection section in the library tab, and in here will be WEx London. So I can go to, say, that's a particular project. Maybe I want to go back and get this photo again. I know it's exactly there. If I want to, this recent import, I can go there. And they're all there. And when it comes to culling, I'll do it with it. So that's just the import section, why I do that. We'll go back to our photos now. Actually, because these are tethered, these don't actually have a collection, so I can create a collection by selecting all my photos. So I've just selected them all with Command A or Control A on a Windows. And I can add to collection. So I go through usually 4 at a time. And this is kind of nice. This is a technique I learned in when I used to work for a nightclub photography company. Is I will select 4 at a time. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just doing keyboard shortcuts by holding shift, but you'd just click these. When I get the number N, the letter N for number, I bring up number mode. So anything that's selected will appear in the screen. So rather than view them all at once or 1 at a time, I can choose what I view. So I can just pick 4 at a time. I can go, okay, that one's stem, and they can all go. They're gone. So really quickly, I can go 4 at a time, that one keep, get rid of the rest. 4 at a time, that one keep. So if I'm doing, sometimes I'm doing a shoot and it's like, and I'm just looking for that bit with a perfect pose. Say someone's moving like this, I go on like burst mode, and I only also need 1, I'm not going to send them all those photos. I can go to my library in the colour profile. Colour profile is quite important because every camera is different, and all your colours are going to be off all the time. If you don't have a colour profile set up for your camera, I would suggest not using Adobe Colour, which is the preset, the default one, is going all the way down and doing camera neutral. See the difference there? The subtle difference. What camera neutral is going to give you is a much more accurate image from what you shot. Adobe Colour almost like ruins your photo, especially if you're shooting in like gigs or nightclubs and LED lights flash and they create this horrible like singular colour patch on their face. Change to camera neutral and that'll instantly go. Instantly. The fact that this is not set to default baffles me. But if you don't have a colour card, camera neutral is your boy. Or you could use colour camera portrait, which gives you stronger skin tones, but I think they're too strong as a starting point. I usually go for neutral because I can, if I want to boost the skin tones, I can just do that in Lightroom. What vibrance does, but it's saturation just it boosts all the colours, whereas vibrance kind of boosts the tones.
It's some of the mid-tones, I think, so the orange.
Yeah, vibrance is like saturation, but only on the tone rather than the full overall colour. So it's a lot more subtle. So if you're going to boost saturation, vibrance is probably a better option because you can do it very subtly. You can use the tone curve to increase contrast if you want to use that method of doing it, like by boosting the highlights and lowering the shadow areas, or you can retrieve some shadow detail by lifting the end of it, things like that. I could just do that in Photoshop, but if you want to keep it, well, I would just do that in Photoshop. If you want to keep it all within Lightroom, that's another little step. So if you boost the contrast in the slider, you can boost it more with the tone curve. Or you can ignore the slider completely and do it fully by hand manually, and that gives you full control over it. So if you are boosting contrast, I would definitely recommend the tone curve section over just the slider. But you could use both, there's no against that. Hue saturation luminance is a slider I use actually quite a lot when balancing images. And usually it's from the kind of saturation point where I might, using this little target thing, I can pick a colour and bring it down. So if someone has like red patchy skin, I can grab this little target, grab the little red part and bring it down, and you notice it brings down the saturation, but only of those skin tones. Karen doesn't have red patchy skin, so that's not going to show you much, but you can see all those settings that I've applied to it and kind of bake them in. It'll still be a raw, we're not losing any quality, we're not losing any quality target, it's still perfectly good quality. But all those settings are baked in, and that's how I usually work because it's much quicker. You could open as a smart object in Photoshop, and what I'll do is I'll import the raw with all these settings, but you can then change those settings in Photoshop afterwards if you wanted to. You can be like, actually, those highlights are a bit too far down. I can then use a smart object in Photoshop to bring them up without coming back into Lightroom and fixing it again. But the reason I always go with the top option rather than the bottom option is because that file is massive, like gigabytes and gigabytes big. And when you're working on a batch of 20 photos, even on my fastest machine, it gets clogged up. So this is a much quicker way of working. But you are baking all the settings. So if you're going to go with the option, you always want to be happy that all this is as you want it to be at this stage. So I'll go to Open in Photoshop. And I will show you a quick bit of retouching. Yeah, and how I changed that. So this next bit of retouching, I'm going to go through a whole process. It's going to sound very complicated. Don't worry. It's called the only thing you need to know about this and write down if you want to do this is called frequency separation.
Very complicated, isn't it?
It's complicated. So it's different from a normal brush. A mixer brush is essentially a smudge tool. For example, I'm smudging all that data around like that. I'm just smudging the colours. So now, when I go to the skin, I can just smudge the skin around. I've turned the texture backwards, you can see. So what I'm doing is just smudging the skin texture. So what this does is it evens out all the colour. You see, like, this is going very heavy-handed. I'm doing it on purpose for a reason. So what I'm doing is just going to almost Barbie doll Karen's face. And I'm always painting in the shape of the face. I'm not just over the texture layer. Kind of before and after. But because I duped this layer up, this layer is unaffected. This one hasn't had the smudginess put to it. So I've got a layer, like a copy of that layer, and the original. And what I can do is go to the copy and bring the opacity down. Go all the way down and we're back to normal again. So I can control how much I bring this in. I use that to build contrast if I wanted to. Rather than just doing it, so kind of contrast slider, I would build it in layers like this. And the reason for that is I've got far more control over every single part of it. But I could also, let's turn it off for now, use curves to bring down highlights in certain areas. So similar to the HSL slider before the target, there's a little finger area here. I can say this skin tone here is too bright. I click on that, and it creates a point. If I drag that down, it will use that as its focus. So I'm darkening the skin tones. I can go, okay, I want them to be that dark. But now what I can do, because it's on a curves adjustment layer, is use a mask by painting it black to get rid of it, and only paint it in where I want it. So any little hot spots of skin, I can just paint that adjustment in. Rather than changing the whole image, I can control using adjustments layers where it actually happens. So it's great for like if skin's too bright or a dress is too bright. Or you can even use it for changing colour by using like an HSL adjustment. I use so for every little tweak I'm doing with contrast and things like that, I'll use adjustment layers because I can layer them up and paint them on enough and that's how you kind of get a full, almost cinematic graded image. Rather than just going, it actually boosts my SEO. Because my website's mentioned in the keywords.
Yeah.
The metadata contains all this information. Also, when I put images on my actual site, I didn't do a test, I found it actually by accident. It was amazing how it worked. When I started doing those headshot days, those little kind of day-long things, I started adding headshot to all the keywords in all those images. And within the next month, I went from page 10 to page 1 pictures. Just by adding one keyword to there. Because all the photos that were out there underneath it
they've got the same thing.
but also like, so a design page hasn't rose ranks, but if you search Edinburgh headshot photographer, I went right to the top because all my images now have headshot written on it. So I'm not the high ranking in terms of photography in Edinburgh in Google, but when it comes to headshots, and I'm not even like a headshot photographer, I do headshots, but there are people in Edinburgh who just do headshots. That's all they do. And they're lower in the ranking system than I am because I use my keywords. So metadata is quite a good thing. So by taking your Photoshop file back into your collection again, you're setting yourself up for better metadata. But if you add your metadata before you take it to Photoshop, it does pass over, but you can keep better. You can keep better tabs on whether it's working and all correct if you just keep working from Lightroom for your exports and imports. And Photoshop is just for your actual edit. So imagine if I kind of think you prepare it in Lightroom, take it to Photoshop, save it, when you open Lightroom, it will be there. And then you can continue your exporting process. Rather than exporting from Photoshop, export from Lightroom. Then you're keeping the same system, there's lots of consistency amongst all your images, and the client has a batch of images that is like, okay, these are all the same, I can use these anyway. But that concludes the end of our day. Sorry, the end was an academic one. Any questions to end us off on whether it's on this section or the entire day in general?